If I do receive that error of no data, I will keep hitting refresh, and hopefully there won't be as many interruptions. Like right now, I have no data coming through. So I can't even press the go live button on YouTube right now.
Okay. So.
Okay. So I can press it now. We can give it a try with the music going, see if it helps for 7 minutes. But I just wanted to put that out there. I do apologize if we may have to do it over again, or if we do hear or see that pause.
Okay. Well, I decided to share my screen.
Okay.
So if.
Okay, and I'm gonna hit go live.
Okay, I'll start music then.
I lied. I can't. It grayed out again.
Oh no.
I do receive that error of no data. I will keep hitting refresh.
Uh-huh.
Will you talk first, or do I?
I can if you want me to.
To let us know that we're rolling, and then I'll intro, or do you want me
Okay,
to start?
Uh-huh, I can do that.
Is that okay?
Yep. Okay, I think we're good. All right. Hi, everyone. Happy Thursday. Welcome to Kentucky Go Digital. We are so happy to have you here with us today. My name is Matt Balcom from JCPS. Thanks for being with us. Second show of the year. We're super excited. I'm going to pass it over to the one, the only, the amazing Brandy New from Hardin County Schools to lead us into our show today.
Thank you, Matt. Matt's our DJ in residence, so I like the tunes at the beginning, man. Sets me up for the right mood. We're here with lots of people on the KYGO Digital panel today. Along with Matt from JCPS, we got Elaine Abenatha and Danielle Washburn. They're digital innovation leaders. I think Dana Dowdy from DLC from Graves County is over in the YouTube for us, so she can take your questions and chat with you there. We also have Angie White, Director of Instructional Technology. From Oldham County Schools, the bell always gets you, right? But at least I'm excited to be back in buildings, so I'll live with the bell. And then who else? Oh, James Allen. Thanks for jumping in with us, James. He's the statewide school library lead and digital learning coach. Also, two of my favorite teachers in Hardin County Schools. No, I love all you guys. Teacher leaders, Erica Wyatt, she's at Creekside Elementary, and Kate Farrow is at Central Hardin High School. They're going to share with us today some of their wisdom and knowledge about student autonomy and the tool specifically that they're looking at is choice boards, but they're going to kind of talk to us about some autonomy and how to build that in their kiddos today. So I'm going to I think Erica's getting started for us, or however you want to do it, ladies.
Sure. I'll share. I probably should have practiced sharing my screen earlier just to make sure it worked, and I didn't do that, but we'll share this and kind of see how it goes.
Well, and while you're doing that,
go ahead.
I forgot anyways. If you're over on YouTube watching us live, please introduce yourself and feel free to put questions there or comments, and we'll relay them back to this screen, okay? So see, you just give me a chance to fix my mess up, Erica.
That works. And I'm out here in rural country where internet is lovely, so if things lag, just bear with me. But this, like she said, she's already introduced us. I'm Erica. I teach 5th grade at Creekside, and we have Kate, who is also an ELA teacher at Central. Is that right, Kate?
Yes, I currently teach sophomore, so.
Fun. So today we are talking student autonomy, and we have basically 3 goals that we want to share with you. One is, what is student autonomy? Why is it important? And then how do we, where we're starting at.
And Erica,
yes,
I am so sorry to interrupt.
You are fine.
Yes, at this time we are going to kind of
Start streaming here. Hopefully that will go.
Elaine, will we cut all that, or do we need to
We'll just
roll
I'll
back
take care
in?
of it later. But as long as we're live, we will be fine. because I can fix it all behind the scenes. Oh, we're live. I can hear us.
Yay, okay, good.
Yay.
Okay, so I'm going to close that out, and I will go back to Brandy if you want to.
Yep, Erica, you want to go ahead and pull your slides up again?
You want me to present it?
Yep.
Okay. Yes.
And then get right back to rolling.
Which
And you just pick up where you left off, and I would start from your, why, where you were. Mhm.
Okay. That works.
Thank you.
Okay. So here we are. Our goals for today. Kate and I want to make sure we know or we communicate what student autonomy is, why it matters, and how we achieve it through choice boards. There are a number of ways to achieve it, but when we focus on the how today, we will focus on the choice boards. So this quote, autonomy is different from independence. It means acting with choice. So what I want you all to jump in here, and Kate and everybody, what in your mind is the difference between independence and autonomy, independence and choice? Practice my wait time here. Somebody jump in.
I would say independence. Or is this open?
Yes, open. Any.
Okay. I would say independence is like a 360 options. So I could go any which way I want, but autonomy, is that right?
Yes.
Would be more of, you need to go between these 90 degrees. Does that make sense? That's just me.
That's what I think. We've been practicing discussion strategies in my classroom this week, so I agree with you, Elaine. That's what we've been working on with fifth graders. It's great fun. But yes, that's kind of what I see. Kate, what do you think?
One of the big differences between independence and autonomy to me is independence is you have the freedom. Like you can do whatever you want, but you may necessarily be making choices that aren't meaningful to you. When you have autonomy, you understand why it's relevant, why it's important, and it means something. It has value and worth. And so it makes that choice that much more important. And it kind of like increases the motivation to choose something that is right for you.
Exactly. And go
I
ahead.
don't know about you guys. I'm often almost crippled by that idea of independence. Like I can do all the things. Does that make sense? But if I'm presented with choices, or I need to get this done, especially if you're thinking about kids, because when you give them all the things, like Kate said, there's not necessarily that focus on, I need to make this decision for this, reason. So, yeah.
It's like with parenting to me, and Kate gets to see it from a different perspective because she has older kids. They're not that they know what they know or know what they need. I know that. But in fifth grade, they really don't know what they need. So offering the choices matters because it's up to us to kind of guide that and teach them the value behind the different choices. So, and I'm sorry, our teacher lounge is over there.
From a library perspective, it's a spectrum too. Like you've got kids that are totally awesome with making their own choices right away. Mm-hmm. And then you've got kids that I don't know, for whatever reason, they just need like a little bit of nudging in one direction before they can make a decision. So it's interesting seeing like a whole class come in to check out books, and then you've got it's like 0 to 100 on that scale of their ability to just know what they want to do.
Yes, and it's important that we as teachers know all of this behind it, because we have to be able to build those choices with the kids, for the kids, and kind of guide them in that way. So historically speaking, traditionally speaking, schools are not always great, or teachers, maybe not schools, are not always great about offering choice. And it's one of the things I know Brandy and I have had tons of conversations on, but it's one of the things that we really want to work on. And whenever we look forward in education, trying to help students become part of the learning process rather than us throwing the learning process on them. So we have another little thing here. If you go to this bit.ly, and I'll move my mouse, there are 3 questions in a Padlet, And I want you to reflect on your time in school when you were a student. How often were you offered choice in school? And then 2, as teachers, as educators, and I don't know everyone's background in their classroom, whatever, but how often do you or did you offer students choice? And then the 3rd one, which is where we always end up, especially when you talk about it, what are the barriers to offering choice? And I'll hop over to the Padlet to just kind of, we'll see, I'll give you all time to get in. Large projects, yes. Teachers would throw those large projects in just to kind of make learning seem more fun a lot of times, I think. Literature you studied. And guys, feel free to jump in. Kate, Brandy, whoever, if you see an answer that you want to jump out on or explain further, feel free to do so.
So my last couple of years in the classroom, I actually did some not choice boards. I did like an entirely self-driven curriculum with my students. So from day 1 to day 180, they had everything they needed for the whole year. And I think for me, part of the challenge with that was not just the front loading of the work, but in a chemistry class, it was also the controlled chaos that you kind of had. Like you could come in and you could have 30 different kids working on 5 different labs in 5 different areas of the room. So it was a little crazy at times in my room, but it was also very awesome, and they got to really make it authentic. And not only did they have choice in what they worked on, but also choice in how they showed that learning too. So I thought that was really important.
As teachers, we worry about that control too much sometimes. It's definitely one of the barriers, but when you embrace it, like you said, it's awesome. It's great.
I think
That's what I was going to say.
Barriers I see a lot from teachers whenever I've done this before and talked about it is that it seems like it's really hard. Well, now I have to plan 6 options instead of just 1. And I hope that when we show you our examples and we talk about the how, that you understand it's really not as crazy as it seems, and it will actually make your life considerably easier and a lot more interesting on the reviewing and the grading side of it.
I have to share my anecdote real quick since James is here. I was a good student, but I never read a complete book. I faked it. I was good at faking it too, until my senior year of high school, because it was the first time that anyone ever handed me a list of books and said, hey, pick one, and then you're going to do this thing with it. And first book I ever completed, she actually works in Hardin County Schools. I still tell her the story. And I'm like, I ended up being an English lit major the first time through college. I mean, seriously, I went from a kid who couldn't even finish a book to a kid who became a lit major just because somebody went, you get to pick what you read. Because I guess that wasn't something we did when I was in school in the 80s and 90s. And it was just huge for me to get to make that choice for myself.
Hashtag read what you want.
Right. I thought you would enjoy that, James. That was totally for James.
Oh, you're good. No judgment.
Shout out to Jan O'Daniel, by the way, the librarian who made it happen for me.
So our answers on the Padlet, you can see the shift in education. Most of us rarely we were offered choices as students. It was very much the factory model of education. You sit in your desk, I will give you all your learning. Hopefully you catch it and we're moving on. I will tell you what you're learning, how you're learning, and how you show me. And then we as teachers, because we remember sitting in those desks, somebody said, rarely was I offered choice, and I was excited when I was. We remember that excitement and we try to bring it into our classrooms. But those barriers that are mentioned do often get in the way. And I know Kate has some great things to share that will answer the questions about students not just making easy choices and how to streamline the process and things like that. So I'm hoping that we answer some of these questions or kind of build on all of that today. All right, my screen is kind of messing up. I can't share the screen right now. Oh wait, here it goes. Sorry. It's just slow.
There we go.
Okay. So that brings us to why. Why is this important? Control leads to compliance. Autonomy leads to engagement. And if you have been anywhere near a walkthrough form at all in recent history, engagement matters. But to teachers, there is very different ideas of what engagement truly is. We span, James mentioned the spectrum earlier with student choice, and we span a spectrum on what we think engagement is. And we tend to go from engagement means they are just having fun all the way down to it means they're working with the work and not having any fun. I mean, there's a whole lot in between. So we want to talk about active engagement versus passive engagement, and that is where choice boards and student autonomy really brings us. If you want to come here with me, and we'll look at some of your pictures, you all can play as I kind of talk and as Kate jumps in. It's bit.ly, active, passive, ENG. When you get there, I want you to drop in a couple of pictures. Just pick a slide, add a slide. We'll see what some controlled chaos looks like. But show us what you think the difference, like active and passive engagement. There we go. So Kate, as they are working on that, do you want to talk a little bit in your mind, what is the difference between active and passive engagement?
So for one of the things that make these different for me, are your students doing it because they care about their grades and so they're going to do what you tell them to? And you only have a few who are actively enjoying and really thinking about the learning process they're engaging in. I also see this happen a lot because, we all love putting tech in the classroom. And so when we try something new, it's really exciting because it's a new tool. But sometimes new tools also get super distracting. And whenever I started to put choice in my classroom, one of the options we used was podcast. And we used Anchor FM, which is an amazing tool. And I love it. And we still use it a lot. But you have to be aware that all of the sound effects and the music they can put in it really make it a distraction and pull them away from the learning goal. So that's where, as a teacher, I have to step back and say, okay, are my students actively engaged with the tool to build their learning? Or are they more passively engaged and distracted, or maybe just following along with the option because it might have been the easier option?
Yes. And so that's what I see. And it's the same kindergarten to senior, the difference that she's talking about. A kindergartner may go for that easy choice, may go for the distracting choice, may go for whatever, just the same as the senior will. That choice looks different for both of them, but it's still, you're going to see the spectrum there. You're going to see the stark difference between active and passive engagement. So whenever I think of active engagement, I think of it as like full body. They are actively engaged, their brains are, they are excited about the learning, or like Kate has said, at least understand the benefit in the learning. So if you look at these, you see the kids involved with the content. You see them over here on this side looking and making. There's communication between them. It comes back, Brandy likes to talk about the 4 C's. And that's how you get kids involved with each other, with the content, and tapping into their own ideas of their learning. Whereas here, who knows what they're getting out of it? Some of the kids may love it. Some of the kids may memorize things to get some answers down and move on, and they're not really getting anything out of it. Oh, I love this. I love it. So the dismal kind of rainy day versus someone actually doing the work. Look at the difference here, the discussion, the collaboration, the communication. All of those things matter. When we isolate ourselves in learning, there are times for that, but there are also times to communicate, and you need both. And students need to see the value in both as well, working together. So we're all kind of along the same lines there. The point being, choice and student autonomy brings us to active engagement, and that is the goal. I know for all of you all sitting here, our panelists, you all, that's what you look for. That's your dream, I would imagine. Am I right? You want those students excited about learning and truly involved in their learning. And we won't get that if we're just sitting in our desks telling them what they're going to do all day, every day. So
I think it's funny. Eric and I used to team teach together, and we had to bounce off of each other sometimes because, like Matt said, mine was sometimes just chaos. So Erica was able to give me a little bit of that reining it in, right, and getting the controlled part of the chaos.
And
She's
mine was
excellent.
sometimes too controlled. She taught me to embrace chaos.
We were able to bounce off of each other and even share each other's classrooms and learn that from each other. So just one more of those things, like getting out of your silo, right, and sharing that skill set and seeing that in her and being like, oh, wow, that's a really smart way to control this. Meanwhile, my class is like, woohoo, and maybe not. They were having fun, but who knows if they were actively engaged either. It was a little too far the other way. So,
And that's the thing. You have to find the happy medium. It's not always easy, but it is definitely always worth it. So some more why, and I will let Kate kind of take over here. I'll click wherever you want me to, Kate. You just tell me.
Oh, you're muted, Kate.
I think it says it's important to give students influence over how and what they learn in the classroom, but not all choices are equal. Teachers should structure learning scenarios that equip students with opportunities to strengthen their autonomy, competence, and relatedness. And I kind of use the autonomy, competence, and relatedness as a checklist for myself when I'm designing a choice board to kind of see, okay, is it going to do what I really want it to do? Is it going to be engaging for the right reasons? And there's a link there to this article, a study that they did to kind of see how to make choice meaningful. And it gives a really good example about three math teachers really, and how they implemented choice. And you've got one math teacher who came up with this great lesson where they were going to choose what activities they wanted to do. But she didn't like structure it in any way. She just gave it to them freely, and they were like, okay, I'm going to choose what's obviously the easiest, right? And so they didn't see the benefit. Then you have the second teacher who comes in, exact same choice options, but she individually met with each student to talk about which choice might be the best choice for them. And while that sounds like a lot of work, if you do this the first and second time you offer choice in your classroom, by the end of it, they're doing it themselves. So if you can structure it up front, you save yourself a lot of time down the road, which is kind of like, Matt, you were talking about the front loading. It is front loading, but like the benefits down the road outweigh it tremendously.
That meaningful choice, it's the same, like coming from a parenting perspective. I mean, if you try to choose consequences for your child or for your student or for whatever, you want it to be something meaningful that will teach them. If you are offering choice in the classroom, you want it to be something that they can understand the purpose behind it. And I think that's really what Kate gets at here. And she has some great points here about how to add meaningful choice.
Yeah, so this is kind of where I was talking about that checklist. So first and foremost, autonomy happens when you understand the value or relevance. So does it at least in some way fit their own personal values? Does it relate to their interest? Or maybe it might relate to their personal goals. So when we do a lot of choice, when I talk seniors with career goals or college, they had, something definitely related to their own interests and their goals outside of the classroom. And so they were able to make that choice, and it was meaningful because they were learning, okay, I want to go to UK. This is the essay that I need to fill out. So it was meaningful to them in that way. The next one is that students perceive choosing the task and doing the selected work as appropriately difficult. And that's where I kind of say front loading is so important in meeting with kids as they're making their choices to kind of guide them. I know some teachers, they color code, but don't necessarily tell kids what the color code means. So they may say, okay, you need to choose between the blue and the red choices. Meanwhile, you are going to choose between orange and green. And the kids really have no idea, but you're directing them towards a differentiated option, which is right for them.
Okay, that conference piece is so smart.
Yes.
I think that might be the most magical thing you said. And like I said, you were teaching seniors and you still did that scaffolding. You still built that in there. Yeah, where were you when I was trying to do this 10 years ago and my kids were in the midst of chaos? But yeah, that piece of it, I think would make a ton of difference.
Well, and when
Smart.
you conference with a student and a student sees that you care about the choice they make, they're a lot more likely to choose something better for them because they know you're watching over their choice. Like, you're not telling them they have to choose this, but they care that they're making the right choice, that you're also going to be like, oh, that was a great idea.
Smart.
You know, I think it's really important too for us to note that when our students make a choice and they realize it's not the right choice for them to be allowed to go back and redo or go back and make it that different choice, just like we do in life.
And a lot of times we kind of build that into our steps as we scaffold it. Okay, I want you to kind of lay out the base plans for 3 options on this list. That way, if you do get stuck and you're like, oh, wait a second, you can always backpedal and you already have the groundwork laid for this next idea.
It also speaks to the importance of flexibility as a teacher. You might need to be flexible with the deadlines and due dates. If a student has gotten so far and is like, you know what, this is not for me, I'm getting nothing out of it, let me try this other path because it will be better.
For sure. And then the last one on this list is the one that I kind of honestly think is probably the most important with our students, especially right now. But students need to be able to make choices that allow them to relate and collaborate with their peers without the fear of rejection. And this is something that I see a lot, especially in my high school classroom. For example, I know a lot of us probably like Flipgrid. My high schoolers hate it. It is a time when they put their face on something, and while they send it to each other and send it to social media, they will not. Like, all I get is forehead up on Flipgrid. And so making sure there are options that they feel like they can choose without somebody in the class going, oh my God, can you believe that they chose that option? They're the only one. And that kind of goes back to just building a lot of community in your classroom, which is what something, all of us do. But make sure you're choosing options that nobody is going to feel singled out or rejected because they chose it.
The community building, I think that's it's important to the whole process, which you can't choose choices for students or offer choices for students that you haven't taken the time to get to know. You cannot offer choices for students that you have only gotten to know their academic side and you've not taken any interest in their personality or how they communicate. You have to get to know them in order to be able to pull all of this off effectively.
And so this kind of goes back to our, the results that I saw in the classroom. My students really enjoyed the freedom to choose, obviously, and also show their talents. I have a lot of artists who don't get a chance to use that, especially in the English classroom, which seems really, focused heavily on writing. But we do a lot of, display what you have read, the themes that you see in an art piece. And then in the conferencing side of things, they can tell me and they can use textual evidence to support every single choice on that list. And that's all I care about. It doesn't matter how they share it with me or share it with the classroom because they're doing it. And I can see that. And so giving them that chance to let them, really be the star of the show goes very far for them. But it also pushed them to try new things. I had a student who chose a podcast a few weeks ago, and he was like, I have a couple of friends who do a podcast, but I was totally I never wanted to be a part of it. And now that I did the podcast for this class, I'm going to go hop on their show and be a part of it because they're having a lot of fun. And so giving them that chance to try new things was great too. And lastly, at the high school level, this is my sixth year teaching, and I have not given a test since year 1. I don't do tests. It just doesn't fit me. We have to write papers, obviously. But usually, even when I have them write a paper, there's an option for a non-paper option. So my students really enjoy that they don't feel that high pressure stakes of taking a test that some of them just really don't do well under. And in my personal experience as a teacher, I don't take tests to prove I'm good at my job. So I don't necessarily think that's the best demonstration or a life skill that they need to learn outside of the ACT, which the junior teachers do enough helping them prepare for that. I don't even know. So they really enjoy that they can take time to present something and present their learning in a way that's meaningful and they have time without the high pressure of it, and it's something they enjoy.
So what I did, I never gave like high pressure tests or anything either. But at the end of each unit, my kids they had to take it. It was a 10-question like Google form multiple choice quiz. And that was just a way for me to kind of like norm my choices as I went like throughout the year, and to compare to years past when I didn't have all those choice options. Just so that I could see, I should expect similar grades on this to what they had in the past when they didn't have these options, and seeing those scores come through, I knew, okay, like they're still getting the same content, they're still getting the same standards with this choice being built in. So that was always really helpful for me to know that I was doing the right thing and giving them those options as well.
Yes, and I was
No, you're fine. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, I'm just reflecting on how I was as a high school math teacher. Unfortunately, that I did kind of give those tests just because of the subject and what we taught. But there were a couple of times to where students had a choice in completing those projects or those PBL. And that's when students really shined. They were really energetic and really into researching, for example, one group researched about health and how they can use the math measures to measure their blood pressure or other things like that. And that's when the students really shined. And also like what you were saying, and that's how students can determine what they're interested in as well.
And that starts in elementary school. I mean, my kids are not ready to go out and work in the world right now in 5th grade. Some of them think they are, but they're not. But it's starting to plant those seeds. If we allow them choice and let them choose, if they fail at it, so what? If they're learning at 5th grade, this is not an avenue. This is not my strength. I can work on it and improve it. But then they start to take ownership in their learning, and that will guide them, given they have teachers that continue to do that throughout their education. That gives them an opportunity to just own their learning and own their path and own their future, which we take away from them when we never offer choice.
Just so you all see our heads shaking, and you know, I mean, I'm sure it feels a bit like preaching to the choir, but the chat on YouTube is also like, yes, no tests, yes. My daughters go to Kate's high school, and she taught senior English, and like we waited for 3 years for senior English this year, and then she went to be a sophomore teacher, but whatever. No, so the kids know that too. You know, they knew that about you. That starts to get out, and that culture starts to build. And actually, one of them tried to schedule 2 senior English classes, and the counselor was like, "You're insane." She was like, "No, I need Miss Farrow and, you know, Miss Wilson or Miss Pearsall." But they hear that, and they know that too. So just think about that, like versus the teacher where like, oh, the hard test teacher, and nobody wants her. I mean, the kid's already dreading it the second they see the schedule versus, yes, I got Miss Farrow, you know, like they know that. And so that's awesome.
And like, the thing is, you have someone like Kate who offers quality choices. It's not just the fun teacher. There's fun with purpose and fun with quality and fun with value. And that well-rounded, that's what you want.
And for me, this is the time in their life where they need to be able to try different things. Admittedly, I'm kind of critical of some of the pathways because, you know, they get niched into this pathway and now they're kind of married to it. But, you know, they need to be able to try the hard artistic choice. They need to be able to try, you know, the mathematical choice, even in English. Like we try to like, you know, make them connect to other subjects. Because when they're in college and they have to take, you know, an extra 2 years because they changed their mind, that choice and that trying different things gets a lot more expensive. So I want them to try now when it's free.
So admittedly, in 5th grade, it's a little bit different, but not all at the same time. So my student testimonials, I'll share them before I share the screen, but admittedly, so this year has been nutso, and having the desks all facing the same way, and you can't have them in the groups that you're used to. I have fallen back into some quote unquote factory style teaching, and I realized that earlier on in the year. I'm like, no, we can't do this. So it was a Wednesday. We were kind of off. We'd been studying story writing and just talking about having a beginning, middle, and end and what those entail. And so I offered a choice board, and I'll show it to you in a little bit, about what story to write about. I mean, that's an aha. Give them different prompts. Don't give them all the same one. And just that little taste of choice, the students were like, it was just so great not being told exactly what you wanted me to do. I got to pick some things. And it was freeing for them. And whenever they feel free in their education, they are more invested in it. I got way better stories from that than I had the rest of their prior to that. They say choice made it more fun. And in elementary school, they focus on that a lot. But then other kids would say, I felt like I was in control. And that, for a fifth grader to recognize that, is huge, because that was the goal. I wanted them to be in control of their learning. And then especially with some others that we had, I'll share those as well. But I teach writing in fifth grade, and whenever you do focus on demand, sometimes they look at you and they the things that they want to do to you when you have to teach that are not fun. So one kid, and some kids will never like to write, no matter how fun I try to make it. But one kid told me, he said, I don't like writing, but I actually enjoyed this assignment. And it was not the fun story writing assignment. It was an informational writing assignment. And he enjoyed every bit of it, even though he admittedly said, I still don't really like to write, but I can handle this. And at the end of the day, there are going to be some kids that, no, they don't like math. It's not their favorite subject. But if you can have them say, but I can get on board with this, that's great. That's what you want. So it's the students speak for you whenever you let them have choices. And that's what we should do more often. Let the students speak, to share kind of the goals and how things are going, like we've said. So the how do we offer choice? And we are focusing specifically on choice boards. Kate, I don't know if you have the slideshow pulled up, if you want to share it so you can click on your things and talk about them. Or you can just read from mine and I'll click wherever you want me to.
You're muted again, Kate.
For whatever reason, I can't share my screen. I'm not sure why.
Okay, that's fine. Just direct me.
That'll be great. So I always try to do a blend of tech options because that is kind of my wheelhouse and what I prefer, and I think it gives me a lot of options in the classroom. But I also like to always give non-tech options, because if I am using this as a summative assessment, I want my kids to feel like they have a comfortable choice. And as hard as I try, some of mine just aren't comfortable using tech. And so I don't want them to ever feel like their choice limited their success, in a sense. So I like to have both of those things available. And then we use standards-based grading at our sophomore level. And so all of our tasks are always connected to a standard. And doing that allows us to use one rubric and allows us to, have a lot of choices available that don't require a lot of changing on my part. Because my students can, show me in art, they can show me in writing, and they can show me in a video, and they can show me in a comic strip, that they can tell me the theme of a story. All of those options work. And so if I'm just assessing how well they can determine a theme and support that theme, then it's all the same standard, and it's no different. It goes in the grade book the same, no additional work there.
That's another smart. I want to stop just to pause on that, because if people didn't realize, I think people think, I've got a choice board, so I'm going to have 9 different assignments, and I'm going to have to grade 9 different assignments, and I'm going to have 9 different rubrics. But you're not, because you're focused on the standard. So it's one rubric for the standard, in that example, theme. So it doesn't matter which of the 6, 9 choices they picked, whatever it is, or even 3, you have the exact same rubric, and that's what you score it off of. Smart.
Yeah, and that too kind of prevents them from choosing the easy route, because it's all the same. They're just choosing the one that they can demonstrate with.
And I have an inkling that both of you have actually had students come up with other ideas that could be additional to, so that's when they get to innovate and create and do those type of things. So you have had students that say, well, I like to do this, but can I do this? And then I'm sure your answer is
yes.
Yeah.
And like, I will have students who will also, okay, well, I really want to do the art one, but I'm not an artist. Can I do it digitally? Sure. Like, as long as you are not just picking one photo and putting it on the slide, like you've made a collage of things to really get at what we're trying to do here, I have no issue with that. So kind of like letting them have some control too.
And it's not even sometimes tools that I'm familiar with, because I've had students, I have a choice board, I have all this stuff, and they get excited, but they're like, oh, but I don't want any of those. I use this one thing at home. Can I use it to whatever, whether it's an app or whatnot? And I'm sure, why not? Tell me how you're going to make sure it works and how you're going to get it to me. And parents have emailed me things, printed, whatever, from apps that they've created, and you still get to use the same rubric. It's great, and it works, and they're excited about it.
And lastly, like, I have used it for both formative and summative assessments. The one that I use is formative, which she'll show you in just a minute, is the Hamlet choice board. And so rather than doing a quiz after every act in the play, we offered a choice board, and we kind of gave them some direction and said, over time you will complete all 5 different pathways. But you can choose when you want to do whichever pathway. Because, for example, some of them are more dramatic, and so the GIF responses worked a lot better for those because they wanted to they wanted to show their reaction to that scene, whereas maybe there was a scene that was a lot more plot driven, so they felt it worked better with the comic strip. So they kind of had some choice of when they thought they were most appropriate. But I was still able to assess each standard at some point throughout our learning of Hamlet. So if you want to click on that one for me. So as you'll see, each of them, they all started in the middle, and it was just a critical thinking task card, which they got to choose the card, they got to choose their question that they felt they could answer strongly. And then the other options were all connected to different standards. And so at some point they were going to do all of it, but the choice was the timing and when they felt they were able to strongly complete that standard and had mastered it. And so, like, I want to show that you can have more control, but still offer choice when sometimes it just comes to the timing. If I am not ready for analyzing characters, I don't have to do that yet. I can choose the plot, which I know is my strong point right now, and I can start there. So that's the way that if you're not ready to just hand over all the freedom, you can do it that way too.
It's kind of like, when we talk about differentiation for students, you can differentiate the process, the content, the output, the whatever. You can also offer choice in different places as well. So you get to choose your learning path. You will do it all, but you get to choose the journey that you take, like that kind of thing.
And Kate, I just wanted to jump in here really quickly because I love choice boards, and I think student autonomy is so important. But you put a twist on it that I'm often fail to show teachers or explain to teachers is it doesn't have to be that they leave some choices out, that they will do everything, but the biggest choice is they get to choose which one of those they do at what time. And I think that's really powerful. So thanks for sharing that.
And we're getting requests for your choice boards and rubrics, but the slides will be in the description of the video. Yes? Yeah.
Yes. And
just
checking.
checking.
I can put some examples in there too, so you can see the student example as well.
Which one did you want me to click on next?
I'll talk to the argument choice board. It's probably most relevant right now.
Okay.
So over NTI, we were doing our argument unit, and traditionally we're like, okay, we're going to write a paper because they need to practice this. It's one of the on-demand things. They need to practice arguments. But as you all know, like, NTI and motivation for some students is non-existent. So we tried to kind of put a spin on it that would give them some choice while still meeting our standards. So the first step was that they all did the exact same graphic organizer. because I could see their ability to, break down the steps of an argument. I needed that, and it was good for them to kind of plan out and put their sources in there. So every student, regardless of what choice they chose, did the graphic organizer. Because too, in the process, like when you're writing a paper, it's really easy to hit all your points. When you're doing a podcast that's conversational, sometimes those points get lost, but you still had the background. It was just conversational, you went natural, and you missed a few things. But I could look at that graphic organizer and know they still hit all their points that I was trying to assess. So they all did that. Then they chose one of these options to put together their argument. So they could do an interview video, and I always tried to put examples on there in the real world, if you want to call it that, of what that looks like. So there was an interview video where they would interview an expert about their topic. We did have some students that did some really fast costume changes to pretend to be two different people, and that was really fun. Some people used their siblings or their parents. It was really fun to see them do that. And then there was a podcast option using Anchor FM, and we actually had listened to a podcast in class because I'm big on using podcasts as text in the classroom. So they had that background knowledge, and so a lot of them chose the podcast episode as their option. And we had some kids change their voice to be deeper or higher pitched to be experts. They had a lot of fun. Then we had an ebook option where they could, embed a lot of the illustrations and the charts and the research that they had found. There was a website option, which I was personally surprised at how many students chose the website option because, that kind of can look overwhelming to have a bunch of different pages. But a lot of them chose that. And then we had the traditional essay, because I have some kids who just like to write and they're good at it. They want to stick with what they're good at. It's good practice. They knew they needed to practice the skill for college down the road. So they chose the traditional essay option. And then lastly, I gave another video option that didn't require them to show their face. Because as I mentioned earlier, my high schoolers don't like having their face. A lot of them don't. Some of them are really comfortable with it and some of them aren't. So I used my Simple Show, which kind of is an illustrator video option. And so they were able to put their argument on there and just use illustration, but still do the video that they really enjoyed. So those are the options there. So this one was more of this was a summative assessment, obviously, but all the standards were the same. I used one rubric, which the rubric is attached to if you want to pull that up too.
Where's it at?
It's back on the slide.
Oh, that slide. I gotcha.
I think they'll have it as an example, which is awesome, Kate, because that's what they're asking for. Hey, I have a question. It may be a softball, but next year, are you going to do this, or are you going to do the argument as a paper?
Well, so this time I had part A again in person.
Okay.
We kept the choice board, but we actually changed it. So we used the Sustainable Development Goals as the argument topics for the first trimester. This trimester, we switched it to a pop culture debate. So one of the popular ones was, should Hermione have been with Harry instead of Ron? All of those fun stuff. So they got, again, choice in the topic is always a big thing. And then they got to present it in different ways too.
Caitlin, I want to make sure that I note what you said was really powerful for me, that you don't penalize a student for picking one of the same paths over and over again. So for me, I love to make videos. I love to do those type of things. So if I picked that, you wouldn't penalize me. You wouldn't say, well, you need to do a writing piece now. I like that a lot.
Because we do a lot of low stakes writing in the classroom. And so if I want to know your writing skills, I'm seeing that already. We're conferencing on it daily or, weekly. I try to get to a conference with every kid at least once every 2 weeks when I have a full classroom. The hybrid plan has let me talk to every single student every day, which has been wonderful. But yeah, I'm not going to penalize you if you choose the same thing every time, because I'm seeing your growth and that's all that matters.
All right. Do you want to go over the rubric, or do you just want me to show it that it's there?
You can just show it.
Okay.
So, I have all the things, the tasks broken down, and everything is covered either on the graphic organizer or it's shown in their final project. And like I said, if their final project is missing something, but I see it on the graphic organizer, I'm giving them credit. They did the work. that's just how it is for me. Or, you know, if they're missing something and I talk to them in a conference and they're like, oh yeah, I meant to say, this is what I meant. Again, like, we're good. And I think that's where standards-based grading gives me a lot of freedom to do that. And I know not every school uses that, but I have the ability to kind of revise and fix, and they can do it 100 times if they need to. And that's kind of what I like about it on the end of the choice board.
Kate, for sake of time, I'm going to go ahead and jump to mine, and I'll share just a couple. Does that work?
Yes.
Okay. So I have fifth graders. It's still the same ball game though. We still blend tech with non-tech options. There are kids who just don't want to touch a Chromebook, especially after this year. Some of them are just done and would rather chuck all of the technology. And Kate did this second point as well, providing exemplars when possible. You know, how many times do we as adults Google or look up what something should look like before we create it? So whenever you offer choices, especially when it's creating something, it's good to include those. Rubrics obviously are a must, and you use your students' interests and strengths to guide the provided choices. And just like Elaine kind of brought forth a minute ago, ask the kids. Sometimes they will offer to you unbidden what they want or the ideas that they have, but it's very powerful to also just say, these are the choices I came up with. What ideas do you have? And you can have a conversation with them about, well, how will that show? Because then you get to come back to your content and to your standards. Well, I'm assessing whether or not you understand how to compare and contrast characters and provide text evidence to support that. And they start to think about all of that. So if you have conversations with kids, it just makes it all the more powerful. So I'll show super quick. This one, there's not a whole lot to it. This was a very low stakes. Oh, I linked in the wrong thing. I'll fix that later. This is not the right thing. I'll explain it. But it was the choice board that had the different story options. There was like writing Franken turkey. We combined Halloween and Thanksgiving, and they were writing stories about Thanksgiving dinner coming to attack. And I don't know, the mashed potatoes had a beef with the turkey and fighting, and they got to add some different story starters. But for teachers who are unsure about choice boards, starting with a low stakes option is very handy because it allows you to see kind of where your chaos is going to happen, and it teaches you how to handle it. You kind of ease into it. So we are currently reading Old Yeller. Watch, I'll probably just mix these up. Nope. In my class, and throughout the unit, we have studied, I used this one last year, so I'm reusing it. I'll have to revamp it. But we've studied, you know, how to analyze character traits, how to compare characters and settings, how to summarize. And I've assessed that throughout the unit. So I could have one massive test that tests all the standards here at the end, but if I've tested it and assessed it and checked it throughout, at this point I've done it enough, I know whether or not they have it. So a culminating project, which is another kind of low stakes way to get there. But the students, and I talk about this whenever we introduce the choices, we have this top row, which is all straightforward writing, because like Kate said, some of the kids have learned how to write. Their minds think that way, and they just want to do it and get it done. It's not that it's easy, because the rubric keeps it that way, or keeps it from being that way, but they want to just write a book review or write the compare and contrast essay or the character analysis essay. And so that top row is all about writing. It will show me those strengths. It combines the reading and writing elements, and it hits different standards, whichever one. It also allows them to choose the standard they kind of connected the most with and the one they want to show that they understand. The middle row is more of our tech. We have stop motion animation, retelling and summarizing. The kids were able to use Google Slides to do a stop motion animation. And Brandy, last year we got to do the Spheros. That's one I'll have to change this year. But
I was going to tell you real quick. I forgot. I can break them down. We're good.
Well, it's okay because of our time. Now that we're putting all together, it's not going to work.
Like, oh, I'm going to get cut off the choice board.
Yes, no, you'll make your way back, I promise. But the Spheros were great because they got to be artistic. They got to decorate. They got to use their imagination with how the characters looked in the book and recreate it. And they got to reenact their favorite scene. So it showed their understanding of the character. They had a script. They had all sorts of different things. And then the theme slideshow, which allowed them to get to the different themes and include pictures. And I won't go over everything. But then we have the kind of hodgepodge catch-all miscellaneous row, I guess, where they got to create in 3D with their hands, because some of them just love that, the dioramas. Or they got to rewrite the end of Old Yeller. And I mean, honestly, who wouldn't want to do that? Because and then they got to pretend they were the characters and interview them. And so creating your choice boards, I will say, you saw it in Kate's, use your technology, link everything in. That slideshow links to that specific task, so it explains it better. There's a link to the rubrics, and everything is packed in there for them. So use your technology to your advantage. Your choices don't have to include the tech, but you have it in the classroom. Use it and use it well. Link your exemplars in, so on and so forth.
It's a good opportunity too to collaborate with another teacher. So as a related arts teacher, I would try to just teach the kids as many tools as possible, like not big giant projects, but since they had used it with me, it could have been CoSpaces or Google Earth or whatever it is. That could be an option that you could put in your choice board without having to spend a bunch of time teaching the tool, because they've already done it in another class.
Yes. So like Brandy said earlier, breaking your silos, tearing them down. And it's really great. I was able to collaborate with a 6th grade teacher a few years ago. She doesn't teach 6th grade English anymore, but and she was able to build on some of the things I had already started teaching them. So yes, communicating, it's important. Okay, I'm going to wrap this up super quick, promise. The last one here is for writing. We did an informational unit, and it was around October. So we talked about scary stories. Our reading had gone into learning the history of scary stories. And so it was very timely. The students loved it because they, as 5th graders, got to share with me all of those scary movies that they probably shouldn't be watching, but they got to talk about it and think about it. And so I explained this. They got to choose the parts of kind of like an on-demand prompt, what their focus and purpose would be, their product, and they even got to choose their audience, because I told them, I said, guys, parents are all different. Some of you have seen things that another parent would never let their child watch. Your writing will be for me, so no one else will have to see it. We'll do some peer reviewing and whatnot, but we'll keep it short. And they loved that, because normally the teacher would have to say, no, you can't write about how the characters in it are great characters for a scary story. So letting them have those choices was important. But they got to make their choice on a Google form, and they simply, their house, that way I could sort things later. But they simply chose. After I talked about each one, they chose. And I had students who were like, but my choice isn't up there, because like Elaine said, they said, wait, can I write about? So they typed out what their prompt would be. But in order for me to see what everyone was choosing, because again, controlled chaos, that then auto-created an individualized prompt for each student. So this is mine, there are no student names on it, but it gave me their room name, and it told me what their prompt was, and then it had their rubric right there for them, sent to their email. So 1, they couldn't lose it. 2, they didn't have to look in classroom if they didn't want to, but then their parents could also see it. So that was the one that made them say, you know what, I don't like writing, but I can write about some scary stories and scary movies, and I'm on board with that all day.
Best use of Autocrat ever.
Saved me time.
I had never thought that was genius. I love that.
And that is all I think Kate and I have.
Sorry, that wasn't like very, profound. I was just really excited that you did that. I'm like, you can hook AutoCAD onto all kind of like getting to know you student surveys, right? And is someone already doing this? Is this the first time it ever hit me? I'm sorry, this is genius.
Make you a profile page for each student, yeah.
Or pull it out, like send. Oh,
I love it. That's awesome. That was awesome.
All right.
Well,
I don't know who takes over from here.
Yeah, well, this was an amazing show. Thank you so much for being here. I believe Elaine is going to take us out and tell us how we can continue to stay connected with Kentucky Go Digital.
Thank you, guys.
Absolutely. Kate and Erica, we want to say thank you for sure from everybody that is on this panel and then those that are going to learn along from you. Teaching is truly a team sport, and you are helping us all work smarter. But it's also been said on the back channel that you both are true artists in the craft of teaching. So you guys are really awesome, and we are glad we got to capture some of that today. So make sure that you can receive those on-demand videos all throughout the channel by subscribing to the Kentucky Go Digital Live channel on YouTube. And all you have to do is click the subscribe button. We do have a huge summer event announcement. Do you think you could share that for me, Matt? That it's the second one of those last slides. So we've had events, regional events, and then we have now statewide events, and we are going to have that statewide event on July 20th.
I'm sorry, I don't have the slides. I'm sorry.
You're okay. You're okay. But we'll post that over the thing. So July 20th is going to be the statewide event, and look for registration in April. Our next show is on Tuesday, April 15th at 11 a.m. And we're diving into collaboration during a pandemic. Hopefully we never have another pandemic, but we are going to have how we've upped our game in collaboration with Rosalind Manning and Jamie Chenant and Nancy Hollingsworth. And they are all from Oldham County Schools.
And Elaine, if I can jump in, actually Thursday, April 15th.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Good catch, Angie. So Thursday, April 15th. And then also check us out on Facebook and follow and contribute to that hashtag so we can all learn and grow together and create and connect. And we can share them as well around the state. Until next time, everyone, have a great day, and Kentucky Go Digital.
Yes, actually, I'm going to plug one more thing really quickly before we go. Let me try to find the Robo Rumble slides really quickly. Jim Unger just asked us to share this, so I'm going to go ahead and share my screen if I can really quickly, while we have everyone here watching us for Kentucky Go Digital. So this is loading. Oh, this is wrong. Oh man, I'm sorry, Jim. Let me go to Classroom real quick. You guys are going to see all the bones and stuff behind this here. So we do have a gigantic Minecraft Robo Rumble competition coming up. Let me go find this announcement here really quickly. Oh my gosh, here it is. So usually Robo Rumble is a big robotics event with the Kentucky Derby Festival, but this year it's going to be a Minecraft competition, which is so awesome. So the submission form for this is already open. If you look down, I believe on these slides down here, I'm going to hide that. So you can begin to submit those student works. Really what we want our students to do is to create in a Minecraft world an event or events that are inspired by the Kentucky Derby Festival events. So think of things like Thunder over Louisville, the Pegasus Parade, the Great Balloon Fest, the Chow Wagon, the Mini Marathon, the Great Steamboat Race, or our students can create an entirely new event that would showcase their community around the state of Kentucky, or maybe where they happen to be from, or their parents happen to be from, or just a community that really speaks to them. So all of these things can be found. I believe we sent that out, but we can also tweet that as well, and maybe link these to the bottom of the video as well. So. But we're incredibly excited about that competition. We have first, second, and third place prizes for elementary, middle, and high, both team and individual. And students that submit will get drawstring bags. I think it's the first 2,000 students that submit will. They'll want to screen record their Minecraft creation and then have a teacher submit that or upload that to YouTube and then submit that on that form, and we will get that to you all. So we're excited to see what your students create around the Kentucky Derby Festival. Alrighty. Well, thank you all for being here with us today. I hope you have a fantastic weekend. College basketball is coming up starting, I guess, tonight and into tomorrow. Morehead State, good luck. You're the only Kentucky team repping us this year, so, sad for all of us Kentucky and Louisville fans. And I saw Western Kentucky won their NIT matchup last night, so and I think Bellarmine plays tonight. So, great things. We have the Louisville women's team, the Kentucky women's team. It's just, I love college basketball. It's going to be great. So,
Thank you guys. Hey, Erica, Kate, thank you all. I'm subbing online for a 3rd grade class, so I had to cut out. So Elaine, thank you also for grabbing that for me. The kids are working.
You're welcome.
I appreciate
Thank you all
it.
for having us.
Yeah, it was great. You guys, I love you. Nab, you just know how to teach, ladies. I appreciate you.
Thank you.
all right. Thank you all. Have a great weekend.
And
Bye.
thanks.
See you.
Thank you, guys.